basically, we're going back to, of course, for JECFA to be able to do these estimations, and for CCCF to be able to make those decisions, you need data. And that's what you see on a regular basis, is that data is called for on a regular basis. So essentially, and this is a statement that I would like to leave with you, you should not wait for a call for data to send data to the GEMS food database. You should be doing your monitoring programs, and you should make it a routine application when you have data on things that are populated in the GEMS database. You should be, through, of course, your person in charge, who has access to the database and was empowered and is recognized by WHO to do so, you upload on a regular basis your data, because this allows JECFA to right away, if a problem becomes a problem, they will see how much is available right away without a call for data. So data can be provided at any time, to the GEMS food database. But of course, once a question is formulated and a Codex committee has to do some work, the first thing that happens is that, well, do we have the information that we need? As I mentioned to you, for the most part, on the hazard characterization, the information can be collected in general from the scientific literature by the group of experts who is going to be conducting this. Sometimes the scientific literature may be limited in what is there. So they would be doing a call for data even on the toxicological information, because sometimes some studies are unpublished. And basically getting that information can be useful for the hazard characterization piece. Now, a lot of the data that is requested tends to be occurrence data. What we call occurrence data, it's how much of a contaminant is present in a specific food. Okay, and they will be specifying, we want levels of the listed contaminants in animal feed, in animal feed to animals for human consumption. So they give some specificities as to the type of data that they would want. They would also ask for the sampling protocols. They would be asking for the methods to prevent. They would be asking even for the analytical techniques, because giving a number is not enough. You need to rely on the number. Okay. There is also another thing. You remember in what Amin presented, non-detects. A non-detect with method 1 is different from a non-detect with method 2. If my first method is has a 10 ppb limit of detection, and I put a non-detect, it means that it is something lower than 10 ppb. If my limit is 1 ppm, that's much higher, which means that my non-detect can be 0.5, 0.9 ppm, which is practically 100 times, 1,000 times more than what I had with the other method. Okay, and this is very important that they know the method of analysis and the limits of detection and the limit of quantification. Okay, so they will be asking for that. They ask as well, to the extent possible, and even though they rely on the cluster data, but if there are consumption information, they will be trying to get that. There are also other pieces of information for some contaminants to be able to help the hazard characterization, so the effect on the body. It's easier to look at, or it's one of the elements to look at what we call biomonitoring activity. So essentially a biomarker in the blood or in human milk, or or a metabolite that is close to that chemical, but that you can find in the body. Okay, so they will be looking at biomarkers of exposure. So for example, the majority of environmental contaminants, the best tool to see where they are, human milk. Human milk is the best tool to, it's non-invasive. You can have databases or you have human milk banks that you can access. So long that you use that with the right ethics approaches and so on, you have an immense source of information. Now, of course, the way data is called, it's based on the prioritization that is conducted by the various committees. And this is, of course, the prioritization that is done in the context of CCCF. How does prioritization work? So essentially, there is a physical working group, I think, that meets on the margins of CCCF, and that physical working groups receives a number of, updates from different countries, on certain contaminants in foods. And basically, for each contaminant, you have the question that is posed, and then you can look at who contributed with what at the time of the request. So at the time of the request, basically, EFSA had an updated assessment anticipated, so there is quite a bit of information available. Apparently, Canada would have provided occurrence data on foods of animal origin. Singapore uploaded its total diet study data, and New Zealand uploaded some occurrence data. So that's kind of the state of affairs at the point where what the request is made. And I'm not going to go through them all, but you see here our friend scopolamine in the list. So it is in the priority list. And at this point, again, the request is to have a full evaluation, toxicological assessment and exposure assessment. And here you have the updates. The updates at this point is that CCNASWP finalized the standard. We're keeping the item on the priority list, waiting for data to be available. So that status hasn't changed. Okay, it remains on the priority list, and it would be also nice to have an update on where we are. And as maybe part of the afternoon discussion, we can discuss how we can change the content of this table soon enough. So that could be a way of doing it so that the information hopefully evolves. And, I'm not going to go through them all. So you have, the PFCs or PFAS, ethylene oxide, ochratoxin A. So all the various compounds that are on the priority list. And generally, at each committee, there will be an update that is made by the JECFA committee. So this is the update on the 101st meeting of JECFA. One of the interesting developments is the fact that there was an updated assessment for arsenic focusing on speciation. So essentially both organic and inorganic arsenic. Okay?